Buckeyes. Why does that have you flummoxed?
Well, I mean, can Brian Hartline really not handle dual responsibilities, being the head coach at USF and calling plays? We've seen people do it for a decade and change and route to national championships, and he can't manage it. And don't get me wrong, the 10-point performance at the Big Ten Championship against Indiana was disappointing, especially the red zone play calling, the use of heavy personnel, taking your best playmakers and Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate off the field. And Ryan Day now, basically, does he not trust Brian Hartline anymore? Now he wants to kind of get back to his aggressive roots. He was the OC for 5 years. He's been around for quite a long time. And last year, after the loss, they kind of put the accelerator down, and that's when they started to get a little bit better. So I think it's kind of fascinating, interesting, but I expect a very aggressive approach from Ohio State in this matchup.
All right, let's pivot. Elsewhere, we're going to have Alabama as a sizable dog in a matchup against Indiana, who's coming in red hot. This is going to be in the Rose Bowl. Indiana laying somewhere around 6.5, 7. It's been fluctuating back and forth. As my resident quarterback, what version of Ty Simpson needs to show up for Alabama to knock off the 1 seed?
Well, I know Saturday will appreciate this. A well-protected version of Ty Simpson needs to show up. Now, that's not entirely on him, because I look at the offensive line, and when he isn't pressured, he's elite. Over 70% completion, a ridiculous 21-2 touchdown-interception ratio. But if you breathe on him, if the pressure starts to erupt, he completes just 47%. That's a pretty significant drop. He's been battle-tested this year, and he's had great moments, and he has responded very well against adversity. But this Indiana defensive line, the interior defensive line, is probably the most disruptive I've seen this year. Their two safeties are one of the best tandems in the sport. D'Angelo Pon's the ultimate competitor at corner. So they don't just react to you. They're going to line up, play man. They're going to attack you with the defensive line. So the O-line and the receivers better be ready to win their one-on-one matchups.
Would love to see these two engage in a shootout. That could be a lot of fun for everybody involved. Paul, what would a win mean for Kaylin DeBoer? We've been talking about his future seemingly every day. This is a big matchup against the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, Joe, it's Christmas, of course, so I don't want to go back to Friday night and show my texts on the air from all of Greg's friends and neighbors and former teammates who were about to put Kaylin DeBoer on a plane and send him to Ann Arbor. But that didn't happen, and what that meant is that now he's very popular. A win against Indiana in the Rose Bowl, and Nick Saban, Kaylin DeBoer will own the city of Tuscaloosa.
All right, elsewhere, Oregon coming off a big win, but not cover for anyone who was paying attention to that game against James Madison. This is in the Orange Bowl. The Ducks are a 1.5-point favorite. Note that, a 1.5-point favorite over Texas Tech, who is coming off a bye week. Paul, Texas Tech, should they be disrespected here? Should they be feeling disrespected?
I think they are feeling disrespected. I mean, they have the highest payroll in college football. They should be proud of that, of course. But they went through a schedule that they really didn't accomplish a great deal other than get to the playoffs. They beat BYU, a top 10 team, a couple of times. They have a couple of nice wins, but I think that's why the public is not respecting them like some of the other teams who played a far more aggressive and well-respected schedule.
Greg, any reason to have doubts about Oregon quarterback Dante Moore?
You know, it's funny. I went back, Joe, and watched the 8 interceptions he's thrown this year, including the 2 he threw last week against James Madison. And there are some lapses in judgment. I think we often forget this is a young quarterback. This is a guy that's just playing his 3rd year in college football. He'll throw it into traffic a little bit. And when you look at Texas Tech, they are plus 17 in the turnover margin. That's number 1 in college football. They are elite along the defensive line in flustering the opposing quarterback. They have an edge defender that's got 13.5 sacks in David Bailey. If they can harass Dante Moore, they can force his hand and maybe slow down this offense just a little bit. But if he's on, look out. It could be a long day for the Tech defense.
Gentlemen, tremendous stuff as always. Thank you for getting up with us this morning. We're 8 days away from the next round of the conference.
At Capital One, the CFP Quarterfinals are officially set, and we're looking forward to them. We have Miami, who beat A&M, facing the number 2 seed in Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl to kick off all the action. 9.5-point dogs. That's what the Canes are. Then we have a little bit of a tighter spread with Oregon and Texas Tech on the Orange Bowl. The Rose Bowl with Bama and Indiana. Bama beating Oklahoma to get to the Rose Bowl. And then Ole Miss and Georgia, 6 versus 3 in the Sugar Bowl. Now, let's not forget that the top 4 seeds coming off of the bye went 0-4 against lower seeds that won the first round games in the very first CFP quarters in 2024. So we'll see if the results are similar, different, who knows. We have Kenzie Brooks joining us here, Danny Cannell back with us, because we're going to go through every single quarterfinal matchup and have you guys rank them. I don't know if you're on the same page. I'm thinking you are in some, not in some others.
We don't agree all that much.
No.
So
yeah, so we'll see what happens. And we're going to kick things off with Miami and Ohio State. Guys, my fiance grew up a Canes fan, actually. He went to Florida. He switched over to the good side. You might not agree. But he tells me his childhood memories watching the last time these two teams faced off in 2002, crying. It like ruined his week, his month, all the things. There's a lot of lore, a lot of history.
Oh, yeah. The Miami Hurricanes will not stop talking about the penalty of that game. Yeah, it cost them a national title. Yeah.
He's not even a fan still.
Yeah.
Where does this rank for you, Danny?
This, and I know it's the highest point spread. It's the biggest point spread of the entire quarterfinals. This is my number 1 matchup. Wow. I think it is really interesting, yes, because of the history, but I also think it's because of the talent that's on the field. When you put these two defenses against each other, there will be several first-round draft picks on both sides, not just Ohio State, but I was thoroughly impressed with what you saw from Ruben Dane and Akeem Mesidor against Texas A&M. They were harassing Marcel Reed all day long, and the last time we saw Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, what did we see? An Indiana defense getting after Julian Sand, sacking him 5 times after they'd only given up 6 sacks the entire season. So I think this is going to be a defensive test. Both teams have a ton of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Everybody knows about Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. They're starting to find out about Malachi Toney and C.J. Daniels, a couple of the offensive weapons for the Miami Hurricanes. But watch out for Mark Fletcher coming off his biggest performance, 172 yards on the ground. That is something Indiana ran the ball pretty effectively against this Ohio State defense. So I think there's a team that's coming in with a lot of momentum because it really isn't just a one win. They had to win the last 4 impressively, and they did. And you've got Ohio State coming in, limping in a little bit after a loss to Indiana. I think there's 2 opposing forces here about to meet.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said that they've kind of been in must-win playoff mode for way longer than Ohio State has. Ohio State hasn't been there at all yet. As far as the model, they still make it a 10-point game, but I'm with you. Like, there's something to be said about having momentum, and we saw that happen last year. I think where this game could get out of hand for Miami is just the fact that we have Ohio State doubling them up in the air, right? Passing yard-wise in general, and there's always the fear of Carson Beck interception. So if you can win that interception battle as Miami, I think your odds are obviously way more in your favor, but you're talking about having 2 Malachi Toneys, right, with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith there. So that's where the edge is for us. It's the passing yards. The rushing yards are actually completely identical, but it is just that edge to Ohio State as far as turnovers, interceptions, and then through the air that's really making this probably why you're seeing the 8.5-point spread you are, because we have this game at 10, so we're pretty much in line with odds makers.
So, Kenz, if this is Danny's number 1 matchup, where does it rank for you?
So I personally actually will put it at 2. Like, okay. I do think these 2 games with the teams with momentum coming in are going to be the most exciting here and probably the most, underdog. And they both have a high ceiling, Alabama as well, but especially Miami. Like, I've obviously been Miami's biggest hater all year, and I'm so willing to give them their flowers for going into SEC country, 11 a.m. local time, playing like a dogfight game, which isn't technically their style, and coming out on top of that. My admiration for this team is a lot higher than it was probably 3 weeks ago.
I think there's another similarity, too, in why I liked Miami against Texas A&M. Texas A&M's schedule was not the toughest. I know they played in the SEC, but they played most of the bottom dwellers. And they finally got tested against Texas and lost that game. Yep. I think you could say the same for Ohio State. They played Texas early, and then they ran through the whole schedule, and then they played Indiana in the championship game, and they lost that game, and their only other test. So I think Miami's been a little bit battle-tested, and I know they lost a couple of games, but I actually think those battles have made them a little bit more battle-tested. They've been more used to adversity, to playing through it, where now we still don't know how this Ohio State team, who does have a lot of young players, how they're going to respond to the adversity of just losing.
And think about that week 1 game. you're getting week 1 version of Arch Manning, which is borderline FCS, and you only beat them 14-7.
All right, let's go to Bama and Indiana, because, Danny, I remember we were talking about if you're Indiana, who would you rather face, Bama or Oklahoma? We said Oklahoma. That's not the reality. And, Ken, this is the number 1 matchup for you.
I think this is going to be a sneaky great game. Like, I think this is the correct type of matchup for Alabama to have a chance. We would only make this a 1.5-point spread. Like, we think that the ceiling of this Bama team and their offense and their passing offense, we actually have them with the edge in the air. And you're talking about an Alabama team that's also able to stop the run against Oklahoma, and Indiana doesn't exactly have a juggernaut of a ground game here. So if they can stop the run, keep the edge in the air, I think that's their path to victory here. And I think the world of Fernando Mendoza, but he wasn't, he was kind of putting up like pedestrian numbers against actual teams with a pulse as far as his passing yards here. He won the Heisman because they were undefeated and he made the right clutch plays, and I'm not taking away from that. But they let other teams make mistakes too. So as far as actual passing yard ability, I would not put Ty Simpson that much further down the list than Fernando Mendoza.
Oh boy, SEC Kens is here, and she's
I just looked into the hearts of the Hurricane fans.
I hear you.
My flowers.
So I look at this game, and I still think people have a hard time getting past Indiana, being a team that is favored against Alabama, and I do think that is a unique spot that Kirk Cignetti's never been in before, because every time they've had that chip on their shoulder, nobody gives them credit. How do they handle being the favorite against a powerhouse like Alabama? I think they'll handle it fine. The reason I don't love Alabama here is I'm not so certain all of their issues are fixed because they beat an Oklahoma team. And I'm taking some heat. I think Oklahoma's defense was a little bit overrated. John Mateer was an interception waiting to happen, and sure, he gives him that pick six, which tied the game up before the half, and then it was sort of all Bama from then on. I still look at this Bama team as the same team that lost 2 of their last 4. So now they've lost 2 of their last 5, and all of a sudden they get 1 win, and everybody's saying, oh, they've got to have all their problems fixed. Their offensive line still is an issue, and I think that Ty Simpson will be under more duress, similar to what he faced against Georgia in the SEC championship game, and we saw how that one turned out. So Stephen Daly being out for Indiana is significant. He was their leading tackle for loss, leading sacker, hurt in the celebration of the Big Ten championship game, which is a horrible story. You hate to see that. I do think that could have an impact, but I still like Indiana.
So is this is Kansas number 1. Where is it for you on your list?
My number 3.
Your number 3.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that we got great matchups. We're finally through the storylines that everybody loved, stomping on the group of 5 teams. It's done. Those are in the rear view. Now we've got some great matchups.
Okay, let's get to another great matchup, Oregon and Texas Tech. So, Danny, where does this one rank up for you? Because it feels like these teams are really evenly matched.
This is my number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it number 2. 1, because I have picked Oregon to win the national championship, so I'm kind of excited to get to see them. I'll be in person down there in Miami at the Orange Bowl. And I'm also very curious to see how Texas Tech does. I know their defense has been, talked about like they're the 85 Bears, and they have been really good, and they spent all of this money in the offseason to build up a defense, but they really haven't faced any offense or a quarterback like they're going to face in Oregon's offense with Dante Moore. I think Oregon's defense is also one that's, a little bit underrated. People don't realize how good they are, and I know James Madison covered. That was with some second and third stringers in there.
Cover.
Yeah, I think Oregon was kind of going into prevent. Let's just get out of here. So I think they bump it up a notch, and I'm very curious to see how Baron Morton goes toe-to-toe with Dante Moore. He's been good, but not great. If they're going to win this game, he's going to have to play great.
Yeah, I don't think this can be all defense here. And I'm with you. Like, they have put up historic numbers defensively, right? Going from allowing 33 points per game to 11. Like that, I don't want to take away from that, but I will say I feel like 70% of this success is from the talent and from the NIL and the way they invested in this team. 30% of it is probably just the Big 12 offenses in general being down from where they were last year. Like, your 2 games that were your big games were against the 40th ranked power teams in our model. So you're telling me you beat the 40th best team twice, and that's why we're making you a 4 seed, and this is a pick'em game? Like, again, I'm so willing to be wrong here, but I do have to see it to believe it with Texas Tech playing a team, because I really don't think much of BYU. So I just am not ready to be bought in on this Texas Tech team the way a lot of America seems to be.
Okay, and this is matchup 3 for you?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's round it out with your alma mater, Georgia, taking on Ole Miss. The second time these 2 teams are facing off this season, this time in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia came out on top last time, but this is